8,850 meters, the mountain has stirred the imagination and courage of man for centuries. Hundreds have died trying to climb to its summit, and now a city slicker with a borrowed sleeping bag but a lot of heart is about to attempt to trek to its third base camp. This is the Everest Podcast.
And welcome to episode 14 of the Everest Podcast. My name is Eric, and I am not feeling well at all today. I'm actually going to try to keep this podcast relatively short in an effort to try to conserve my voice and hopefully get well quickly so I can continue on my trek safely. Let me begin by giving you the word of the day. For today, the word is yak poo. That's right, yak poo. I'll get to why yak poo shortly. Where am I right now? I'm actually still at Everest Base Camp 1, same as yesterday. The reason being that I actually woke up this morning after having spent probably one of the worst nights of my life with a fever, sweating, unable to sleep, pretty much didn't sleep all night, and it was definitely one of the worst nights of my life. The only other night that I can think of that would be nearly as bad was a few years ago when I got food poisoning from eating a kimchi pancake at a Korean restaurant in New York. That made for a pretty rough evening as well, but this was probably worse. What happened? Well, I had a cold yesterday, as you all know, and that cold just got worse last night. My fever spiked, and my throat, even now, kills. And with the dry air, the altitude, and the fever, it made for a really tough night, and I basically got no sleep. And I tried everything to try to get some rest. I took Tylenol. I took off as many layers as I could in my down sleeping bag, but still that didn't work. I drank a lot of water, thinking that I was probably dehydrated as well, which I probably was, and that didn't work. So at the end of the day, it just was a horrible evening. I woke up this morning, to find out that one of my other travel companions, trekking mates, also had a pretty rough night as well. And given that two of the three of us were in pretty bad shape, we decided to slightly modify our itinerary. In our trekking schedule, we actually had one extra day of acclimatization that we were actually going to use at Interim Camp tomorrow. Interim Camp is actually halfway between Base Camp 1 and 2, but in light of the fact that I was sick and my travel buddy was also feeling unwell, we decided to spend our extra day of acclimatization here in Base Camp 1. So pretty much all day today I've been just trying to get some sleep and try to sleep off this cold, and we'll see. I think I've improved just slightly, and I'm hoping that I'll improve just a little bit more tonight and be well enough for continuing on this trek tomorrow. It definitely is a big concern because in my current state I just don't feel as if it definitely wouldn't be wise or safe of me to continue on definitely to Base Camp 3, if not even to something like Base Camp 2 or Interim Camp. So I definitely want to get well soon, otherwise it may throw into jeopardy some of my later trekking goals. So excuse me as I clear my throat. I'm still trying to conserve my voice. One interesting thing was it pretty much snowed all day and all night yesterday. So when I woke up this morning and was finally able to pull myself out of my sleeping tent and crawl out of my tent and sleeping bag and crawl out of my tent, the entire camp was blanketed in a fresh blanket of snow, and it was pretty. Were it not for my sorry state, I probably would have enjoyed it and appreciated it a lot more. But it was definitely very pretty with all the snow-covered mountains surrounding us, and our camp completely covered in snow. It was really a sight to see. And unfortunately, we weren't able to trek today because it would have been great had we been able to trek today, because the weather today held up beautifully. There wasn't a single drop of rain or snow. The sun was shining for pretty much the whole day. So it's too bad, but you roll with the punches. So that's pretty much the highlight of today. Pretty much just been resting and trying to conserve my energy for tomorrow. And there isn't much else to report on, except for the word of the day, yak poo. Why yak poo? Well, apparently, and I just heard this from one of my companions, I think the statistic is that 60% of everyone who comes to the Everest region falls ill with some version of the cold. And there are many reasons for this. Part of it is the sanitation and the fact that there is feces of all sorts all over base camp and the Everest, like all the base camps and the trails, and pretty disgusting. And given the dry weather and the high altitude, the stuff dries out pretty quickly and it starts blowing around in the wind. So for now, until I can think of some other theory, I am blaming my cold on yak poo, dried yak poo that was blowing around in the wind. Isn't that a beautiful thought? But that's the reason for the word of the day. So anyway, thanks for listening in. Because of my current condition, I'm going to actually skip the tongue twisters for the day, especially because I haven't actually ascended any additional altitude today. So if anything, you'll just hear me get winded again, but probably not hear me get any stupider than I have been in the last few days. So thanks for listening in. Again, for more background and pictures and information on this trek, visit my website at www.everestpodcast.com. Thanks for listening in to the Everest Podcast, and tune in tomorrow for another episode.
For more information on Erick's Everest trek, as well as photos from his trip, please visit his website at www.everestpodcast.com.